Have you ever found yourself stuck in a relationship that leaves you feeling empty? Wondering if you should keep holding on? I experienced this struggle firsthand with a friendship that lasted 3 decades. Watching it transform from something beautiful into something that hurt me deeply. In this story, I'll share my personal experience of ending a toxic bond with my longtime friend Rebecca, who changed from being my trusted companion to someone who betrayed my trust and constantly put me down. If you've ever questioned whether an old relationship is still good for you, this journey will speak to your heart. You should stay with me until the very end, because this isn't just about cutting ties with someone. It's about taking back control of your own happiness. I'll take you through the emotional struggle of saying goodbye, the unexpected loneliness that came after, and the valuable lessons I discovered about creating a meaningful life on my own terms. You'll learn practical ways to build financial security, like reducing wasteful spending and finding extra income sources, and why focusing on your health through daily walks and better food choices can change how you feel about everything. Most importantly, I'll explain how returning to old interests like pottery brought me happiness and new friendships without the burden of harmful relationships. This story will help you spot relationships that aren't helping you anymore and give you the strength to put yourself first. By the time we're done, you'll have real steps you can take to live with confidence, whether you're by yourself or with people who truly care about you. Don't leave now. Watch to begin your path to a freer, happier version of yourself. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any content. Your support really matters to me, and if this story helps you, you can support me by liking and sharing it with others who might need to hear it. If you connect with this topic, please comment yes, and if you don't, comment no, so I know how to make better content for you. Now, let's start our story. After that difficult day, meeting with my old friend became something I dreaded. I started to fear our talks, feeling more tired than happy after spending time together. But how could I just walk away from a friendship that had lasted more than 30 years? 30 years represents a lifetime of shared experiences, laughter, and difficult moments we faced together. Surely I was just being too emotional, maybe reading too much into things. We had been through so many life events together. Holidays, celebrations, and hard times like when family members got sick. How could I just throw all of that away? Then one day, everything changed in a way I never saw coming. My phone rang, and it was Rebecca. I'd known her since we were in college, and for decades she'd been one of my dearest friends. But recently, things felt strange between us. "Hey, I'm in a tough spot right now," she said nervously. "Could you possibly lend me some cash? I'm dealing with some investment problems, but I'll pay you back soon, I swear." Her tone was relaxed but desperate, and my heart dropped. Money had always been a sensitive topic between us. Over the years, she had mentioned it more often than I could remember, usually asking for loans or requesting favors that cost money. But Rebecca was my friend. 30 years of friendship wasn't something I could just abandon easily. I wanted to help, but I couldn't forget the previous time I'd loaned money to a friend. That was years ago, and I never got any of it back. My own finances were stricter than before, so I carefully replied, "Rebecca, I really wish I could help, but I'm not doing well financially either right now." Her disappointed sigh came through the phone like a sharp blade. "Come on," she said. "We've been friends forever. You can't just lend me a small amount? Don't you remember all the times I was there for you?" That hurt me deeply. It felt like a cold slap in the face. Was I just her personal bank? Was this friendship nothing more than a series of money exchanges? I felt my stomach turn into knots. Then just a few days later, something even more painful happened. Another friend called me unexpectedly, sounding very uncomfortable. "Hey, I heard you've been stressed about your children recently. We were discussing it. You spoil them too much, and that's why they don't value what you do." I couldn't move. My personal struggles, the things I had shared privately, were suddenly being talked about, like gossip. "Who told you that?" I asked, feeling shocked. "Who else?" came the reply. "Rebecca, your best friend." That was the moment I felt completely betrayed. The friend I had trusted with my deepest worries was now sharing them like entertainment at a party. A 30-year friend treating me this way. Was this an accident or intentional cruelty? After that, Rebecca kept contacting me. Hey, are you available tomorrow? Let's visit the farmer's market. I have a party this weekend. Can you give me a ride? Can you pay for my drinks? I don't have enough money. Each request slowly wore away at my patience and kindness. At first, I tried to convince myself, she needs my help. It's okay to give a little. But the reality became clear, slowly and painfully. This wasn't a balanced friendship anymore. It was completely one-sided. I was always the one giving, sacrificing my time, energy, and money. That's when I faced a difficult question. Should I continue this friendship? After 30 years, was it worth keeping a relationship that made me feel drained and used? That evening, I made a choice that changed everything. I decided to break free from the connections that made me uncomfortable, even if it meant cutting off someone I once considered a close friend. From that point on, I started ignoring Rebecca's calls. I stopped responding to messages and made excuses to avoid meeting up. But ending a 30-year friendship wasn't easy. Every day I fought with uncertainty. She's an old friend. Am I being too sensitive? Maybe I'm overreacting. Then the moment that made everything perfectly clear happened unexpectedly. We met at our regular coffee shop, a place full of decades of memories. As we sat down, Rebecca let out a heavy breath. You know I've been having a hard time, right? Why have you been so difficult to contact lately? I forced a smile, feeling uncomfortable. I've just been really busy, I said, hoping she'd accept that and change the subject. But she didn't. With a mean smile, she said, Busy with what? Your children are adults and you live by yourself. Are you avoiding me because you think I'm going to ask for money again? My head was spinning. Did she think I was hiding from her because of money? Feeling confused, I said, No, it's not like that. I've just had a lot to think about. She gave a bitter laugh and said, You always try to handle everything alone. That's why your children turned out the way they did. My heart broke at her words. I've been traveling with my grandchildren. My kids are so helpful. They support me financially and even helped me buy a house. Your kids don't do that, she said mockingly. What was all your hard work worth then? I had heard those words from her many times before, usually ignored as her way of showing off. But that day, her words hurt more than ever. If you're still watching this story and finding these lessons helpful, please comment yes below to let me know you're still with me. I had given my entire life to my children, giving up my happiness, my dreams, and even small comforts like nice clothing or good food. I saved every dollar to give them chances I never had, and now here I was being criticized for it. My kids give me money and help me get a house, I said quietly, but yours don't. Those words stayed in my mind, bothering me long after I left the coffee shop. Why was everything I had done taken for granted? Why was all my sacrifice, raising my children, working endlessly, putting their needs before mine, seen as somehow not enough in her eyes? The weight of those questions pressed down on me, making my heart feel heavier and my hands grow cold. To Rebecca, was I just some forgotten person, ignored by my children? Someone who had given everything and received nothing back? I felt stupid. Stupid for trusting her, for opening up and looking for comfort in a friendship that was supposed to be a safe space. But the truth hit me hard. She wasn't really supporting me. I wasn't getting help or understanding. Instead, I was getting judgment, comparisons, and disrespect. It was painful, but it was clear. I needed to walk away. But Rebecca didn't stop there. A few days later, she called again, her voice filled with fake sweetness. You know, you've changed recently, she said. You used to listen to me no matter what, but now you're staying away. Was it my asking for a loan that bothered you so much? I couldn't speak. She didn't even try to understand how I felt. The hurt, the betrayal, the exhaustion. I forced a smile and said, I've just had a lot on my mind. Her smirk was meaner than ever. You're going to end up alone when you're old, she said cruelly. Cutting off a friend over a loan request, that's pretty selfish. At that moment, something inside me broke. All my held-back emotions came rushing out. and I realized this wasn't a friendship worth keeping any longer. Quietly standing up, I looked her in the eye and said my final words. "You're right. Friends are important. But if this is what a friend looks like, I don't need one anymore." And just like that, a 30-year friendship was finished. Strangely, I didn't feel the relief I expected. I thought cutting ties would make me feel free and lighter. Instead, when I got home and sat alone in my quiet house, a deep emptiness settled in my chest. It wasn't that my life had become empty. There were still neighbors who said hello, people who checked on me occasionally. But something felt heavy, as if a dark cloud had covered my thoughts. I kept wondering, what kind of relationships had I been living with all these years? I had always believed that as you get older, your relationships become stronger. When I was younger, I was too busy to take care of friendships properly. But I was sure that time would make those old connections deeper and more meaningful. Looking back now, I see how wrong I was. Most of my friendships in my younger days existed because we needed each other. Work friends, parents from school activities, distant family members we stayed in touch with because we had to, not necessarily because we truly connected. But life changed. And as the years passed, many of those connections naturally faded away. I retired. My kids grew up and moved out, and the relationships that no longer helped me slowly disappeared. The people I was left with became fewer and fewer. I began to ask myself, will I be lonely without that person? Who will be there when things get difficult? Honestly, most people around me weren't really my people. After the breakup with Rebecca, I found myself questioning every relationship I had. I realized I'd spent so much time and energy trying to keep things going, always reaching out first to avoid awkwardness, trying not to be the bad person, enduring uncomfortable situations just to keep a connection alive. I kept telling myself, they're old friends. If I just put up with it, everything will be fine. Everyone's busy. And I pushed down my real feelings, hiding the hurt and frustration deep inside. But I knew something had to change. One day, on a quiet afternoon, I stopped by a small cafe near my house. I was sitting there alone, drinking a hot cup of coffee, trying to organize my thoughts, when suddenly I heard a familiar voice. "Oh hey, what a surprise to see you here." I looked up and saw Maria, a woman I'd met a few times at a neighborhood book club and community events. Maria and I greeted each other warmly, as if no time had passed since we last met. We settled into the cozy corner of the cafe, each with a steaming cup of coffee in hand. "How have you been?" I asked, genuinely curious. She smiled brightly and began sharing cheerful updates about her life, stories about her kids starting college, her recent health challenges and victories, and the small happenings around our neighborhood. There was a calm ease to her words, a relaxed warmth that I hadn't felt in a long time. Surprisingly, this conversation wasn't a burden. It was refreshing. "Time really does fly, doesn't it?" I said, smiling. "We were so busy raising kids for years, and now we can just sit back and enjoy a simple coffee like this." I nodded to myself, thinking, when was the last time I'd had such a relaxed, pressure-free chat? No judgment, no hidden motives, no need to watch my words or force fake smiles. Feeling careful but hopeful, I finally shared. "Lately, I've been thinking a lot about relationships. They're so complicated. What makes a relationship meaningful?" Maria took a slow sip of her coffee and replied softly, "You're right to think about that. But you know what? The people who truly value you stay in your life without effort. Those relationships that feel natural, easy, and balanced, those are the ones worth keeping." Her words hit me like a revelation. For years, I'd been working hard to keep my friendships alive, often putting more effort in for others than for myself. It suddenly became clear that the relationships that had left me drained, that made me constantly compare myself, or that turned my private stories into gossip, those were the ones I needed to let go of. Why had I let those voices and doubts control me? Why had I let myself be influenced by people who didn't truly care? In contrast, the comfortable relationships, the ones that lifted me up and left me feeling energized and peaceful, that was what mattered. As I left the cafe that afternoon, I felt a new sense of freedom. I promised myself I would only keep people in my life who made me feel good and who respected and valued me. That decision felt liberating in a way I hadn't expected. I realized that being alone isn't scary at all. What's scary is holding on to relationships that drain you. As I began to let go of those unhealthy connections, I also started to notice how much of my own life I'd ignored. How much energy I'd spent worrying about who to meet, what to say, and keeping relationships alive out of duty or fear. But what about taking care of myself? Now I knew it was time to live for me. So what did I need to live confidently and happily? On my own? First, and most importantly, financial stability. There's an old saying that really affected me. Without money, you end up depending on your children's moods. When you're younger, you might think you can earn and provide for your family endlessly. But as you get older, with a fixed income and a body that isn't as strong as it once was, financial worry creeps in. I noticed that people who had financial security in retirement seemed to live freer lives, less stress, and more independence. Those who struggled with money often faced relationship problems, dependency, and anxiety. So I started rethinking what financial independence really meant for me. It wasn't about greed or gathering wealth, but about having enough control over my own money to live without depending on others. Next, I looked into small ways to earn income. Nowadays, you can do a lot with just a smartphone. I began selling used items around my house, old books, kitchen tools, and even small pieces of furniture. I doubted anyone would want them, but to my surprise, many things sold quickly. It helped clear my space and put a little extra money in my pocket. I also explored side work related to my interests. Writing had always been a passion of mine, so I started a blog sharing stories and insights. Others in my community used their skills in sewing, crafts, or cooking to earn some income. Even the small amounts I earned gave me a sense of control and confidence that I hadn't felt in years. Another important step was managing my retirement money and investments carefully. I reviewed my Social Security benefits, making sure I understood what I was entitled to, and looked for ways to fill any gaps. Checking on my retirement accounts and choosing safe investment options like low-risk savings accounts became a priority. Keeping a close eye on these ensured that my money worked for me, providing security I could count on. If you're still watching this story and finding these lessons helpful, please comment 2 below to let me know you're still here with me. By cutting unnecessary expenses, finding creative ways to earn, and actively managing my retirement funds, I started building a more independent and confident future. But money alone isn't everything. The second pillar of a good life, I realized, is health, because no amount of money means anything if you don't have your health. As the years went by, I came to a powerful understanding. My body truly is my greatest treasure. Without it, nothing else really matters. So I decided to start small. I began by promising myself a simple routine, walking for 30 minutes every day. At first, it was a lonely struggle. Walking alone felt boring, and some days I didn't feel motivated. That's when I discovered a local walking group that met every morning at the nearby park. Joining them changed everything. Exercising with others made it easier to stay consistent, and the social aspect lifted my spirits. We shared stories, encouraged each other, and even celebrated small achievements together. This sense of community became a vital support system for me. People who cared not only about fitness, but about each other's well-being. Along with moving more, I started paying closer attention to what I ate. I used to be careless about meals, grabbing whatever was quick or convenient. But now I made nourishing my body a priority. I cut back on overeating and focused on meals rich in protein, fresh vegetables, and whole grains. I replaced greasy, spicy, and sugary foods with seasonal fruits, nuts, and home-cooked dishes. The changes weren't dramatic, but over time I felt lighter and more energetic, and I noticed my digestion improved significantly. The most important shift was committing to regular health checkups. I used to only visit the doctor when I was sick or had a crisis. Now I schedule yearly physicals and keep a close eye on important markers like blood pressure, blood sugar, and cholesterol levels. Early detection and prevention have become my priorities because I know how critical it is to catch problems before they become serious, especially as we get older. Financial stability and good health are the foundation of living independently, but I realized something was still missing, something to fill my heart and soul. Even with money and health, loneliness can drain the joy from life. What's the answer? Finding what I truly love doing. When I was younger, I was so busy trying to survive, juggling work and family, that I never made time for myself. But now it was time to change that. I decided to revisit some old interests and explore new ones. Some people travel, pick up musical instruments, or start writing. I wasn't sure where to begin, so I decided to experiment without pressure. I signed up for a pottery class at the local community center, something I'd always admired but never tried. At first, I doubted I had the patience or skill for it, but as I carefully shaped each piece of clay, I found unexpected joy in the process. There was a peacefulness in focusing on the moment without worrying about perfection. It felt like reclaiming my own time. Others found happiness in different ways: photography, gardening, volunteering at shelters or libraries. I realized that age isn't a barrier to new experiences. I just hadn't given myself permission to try. Hobbies are more than just ways to pass time. They enrich our lives and keep our minds and spirits active. They can also create new relationships. Sharing interests creates deeper, more meaningful connections. I joined group activities like book clubs and started sharing photos and stories online, connecting with people who shared my passions. What once felt like lonely, quiet time became rich and fulfilling. You don't have to find the perfect hobby. You just have to start something new. With financial stability, good health, and fulfilling activities, I finally felt ready to live, confidently and happily on my own. Thank you so much for watching and listening to my story. I hope by sharing my journey of breaking free from a draining friendship, finding financial independence, prioritizing health, and rediscovering joy through new passions, you found something meaningful for yourself. Now I want to hear from you. What is one thing you've learned from this story that you plan to bring into your own life? Maybe it's setting boundaries in relationships, starting a new hobby, or taking steps toward financial stability. Whatever it is, please share it in the comments below. Your insight might inspire someone else too. If you like this story, please leave your comment and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support means everything to me and helps us continue creating content that truly matters. Remember, living confidently and happily starts with you. Take that first step today.